How's it going? Welcome to the show. My name is Richard Hodel, and you are listening to Dream Big podcast. And so on today's lovely show, we have another lovely guest to chat with. We're going to be really talking about the importance of following our bliss, living your life fully, knowing who you are, who you really are, and and how you're going to actually do the, bring all that together and live a life that's actually successful and moves you forward, and that you're thrilled to wake up every day. And of course, we have someone here that's going to help us do that. And I'm sure by the end of the show, your life will be filled with bliss. And so yeah, it'll probably take a little work. I know myself, I've been working at it a long time. I'll tell my little story before I introduce our lovely guest. I have a background in art, and some of you know that, but others don't. I actually worked as a professional artist for about 10 years, and it was always my lifetime dream to be out there doing art. And when I was out there and actually living the life, and other artists are looking at me going, wow, you've got it made, you're selling art, you're supporting yourself, you're doing all kind of things, you're doing shows all across Canada and all, the whole gambit. And I was like, yeah, it's okay. And I would have thought, well, geez, why am I not that excited? Because I realized that, my passion was to be creative. And within that sort of scope of being an artist, you have to sell stuff. And when you're selling stuff and you have to produce art, you have to become often a production artist. And so you're living the life of a production artist, not necessarily being creative all the time, every day. You're doing a creative process, but it's not that exciting often. And for me, coming up with the idea is really the big thing. And so I actually moved away from that and got into what I'm doing now, where I help people to actually figure out their dreams and figure out what they want to do with their lives. And so every day I get to be extremely creative, helping people to figure out how to do what they want to do. And so I'm using all those same creative juices and seeing the big picture that an artist would see, but I get to do that and mold someone else's life and someone else's business. And so, I'm definitely a happier guy now. And so, so it's that sort of piece, so sometimes you think, well, geez, maybe I am living my dream life, but you kind of go, why am I not as happy as I think I should be? Maybe there's something else. And life is kind of funny that way. You have to figure things out, and you have to bash your head on it for a while. But anyway, so that's my little story of figuring out and finding your passion. And but I'll let my lovely guest, as I said, Catherine Whelan Costen. She's got a wide history of exciting things. I'll actually just read a little bit of her blurb here for you. So she's the host and producer of an online chat show, which focuses on universal transformational topics. It's called Let's Get Real, Chatting with Catherine. She is a published author of Father Walter Krusky's life journey, numerous articles, blogs, and a variety of topics, including social issues, women's empowerment, life and death. She spent a number of years in Canadian politics. She ran in 2 elections and held an elected position as president of a federal political party prior to launching her own media production company in 2012. She is an intuitive, gifted with a knowing, and I'm going to ask her more about that too, which she offers for exploration in private sessions through Catherine Clarity Whisperer. And with that, I'm going to let her tell sort of her whole backstory of how she got to be where she is. And because how do you go from politics to using your intuitive skills? It's doesn't quite seem like the same thing to me, which is great. So I'd like to welcome Catherine to the show.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for having me on the show and allowing me to share with your audience and with you. And I love to explore and talk about people's journeys, because I think that's what life is all about. But how do we go from politics to another avenue, which seems, yes, spiritual, metaphysical, sort of totally on both different ends of the spectrum? And I always say, as a child, I was taught, polite company, you don't talk religion, politics, those are off limits. And for me, those are the things I gravitated to, because, and not so much religion as much as spirituality and metaphysical understandings, because we are more than just our bodies. And I didn't always know that, but when I got into politics, it was very much from that place of, I was called into it. And that's how most of my life has been. It was like someone called me out into doing something. So for instance, I'd never spoken in public before. Never. I spoke out in a classroom from time to time as a young student, because I was a bit of a rebel, and I was the one standing up challenging the teacher, you know, from time to time. Well, it was because I was just filled with curiosity. I was always full of curiosity. So getting into politics was, I was speaking out, I was writing letters to the editor, I was involved with what was going on in our social systems at that time. And some people read what I wrote and thought I had the passion and inspiration, and they wanted me to run an election. So the first time I actually was about to speak in public, I did not know that I could. I didn't know I had that talent, that gift, which I call a sacred gift, a gift that you don't cultivate, it just comes to you. You know, it's like being an artist or a singer, it's there, and you have no idea it's there. So when I was speaking this very first time, just before I was about to go on in front of a few hundred people, and this person said to me, one of my supporters, and he said, "Catherine, just remember, everything you've done in your life up until this very moment has prepared you for this very moment." And I've never forgotten that, because that really is how my life, at least, has unfolded. It's like I've always been building on, I learned, you learn to tie your shoes, then you can wear shoes and different kinds of shoes. It's the same thing with all the other skills, challenges, journeys that we take in life. They're all preparing us for something, and we may not know what it is. And I think too often we put things in boxes. As you brought up at the beginning, you thought, you were creative in your art, so you went into a certain area with it, probably encouraged by others. This is where artists go. However, there's so many venues for art, right? There's so many areas for creativity. So for me, it was finding, oh, I have a voice, and I was speaking out, and I was passionate and inspired, and other people were going, wow, where did this person come from? And I was kind of almost beside myself, literally going, where did that come from? Where's that I didn't know it was in me. So I thought I could make a difference by looking for the truth, looking for better ways to get along. I thought politics would be about ideas, about doing things in a better way. So that's why I was drawn to it. And it was a very good experience, and I would never regret it. And I encourage anyone to get involved, to learn about our political system. How does our country work? So forth, right? But what I did discover was that the system at that time, it was 2006 and 7 is when I got out of politics, because that's when I had to actually see the system wasn't functioning in a holistic and healthy way, and that there were solutions, but it's not that the people are, a lot of people say only corrupt people get into politics, or only people who get into it get corrupted. That's not true. What is more true is that the system itself is designed like a battle.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to get along with your opponent. You're not supposed to say, if the conservative guy on the podium has a good idea and you're the liberal or the Green Party or whatever. That's not how we do it, to say, hey, that guy's got a really good idea. Let's help bring that forward. No, it's about tearing people down.
Yeah.
So that's not conducive to harmony and peace.
No. Yeah, and it's called the opposition party for a reason.
Exactly. It's designed, and that's why I think it's important for people to understand that it's not that if you take anyone and you put them in a ring and you say your life depends on beating this other person, you're going to fight for that. That's the game, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same with politics. Pardon me?
Yeah, you're going to duke it out, right? That's the intention, is to have that antagonistic battle going on back and forth. These are the rules. Okay, let's follow those.
Yes, and so what happened to me was that I came to really a strong place of knowing that I'm not actually going to feed that system anymore. I know there's a better way. I know we can get along on this planet. I know we can have peace. I know we can have harmony, but that's not the system to get us there. So I started really thinking at that point, well, I had to get out of it because I felt it was very toxic. But I also thought, what else is possible? And so then a little bit of before that, I have to say, I was always curious. I was always interested in new possibilities. And I would listen to other people's talk shows and people being interviewed, and I would read. I'm a prolific writer and a prolific reader. It's just part of me.
Mm-hmm.
So after I stepped out of politics, I started to look at other avenues and things. I also had developed fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue in 2000. And so I was used to looking into alternative health, different ways of looking at the body, the food, our environment, and our emotions, the things that may prevent us from living our dreams. I love the name of your show, your website and everything, Dreaming Big Solutions. Yes, because when I was growing up, dreaming was called, you're just a dreamer. That was a very negative connotation. Nobody wanted to be labeled a dreamer.
Yeah, that was my official title as a kid.
Yeah, and that meant that you were also not a realist, not aware of your circumstances and your surroundings. You're off in la la land. That's how, and the truth is that without a dream, nothing new is going to evolve. We're just gonna, my understanding now is we create new every day. It's whether we create new and fresh and different, or we just create new, same, right?
Yeah.
So I knew that, and like I say, I don't regret going into politics because it is what called out my voice, and the passion and the inspiration of an empowerment to be able to see that I do have a piece of the puzzle. We all have a piece of the puzzle, and this is my sacred gift, my gift of being able to do that. But it wasn't like that for me growing up. I wasn't encouraged to follow a dream. As I say, that was just not something that it ever occurred to me. In fact, I didn't even know what a dream was. In truth, people say, oh, remember when you were a child and you had a dream? If you're you want to find your passion, you want to live it, you want your business to be doing something, following your bliss. Mm-hmm. This is all very practical if you know what your dream is.
Yeah.
Right? But if you grew up believing that wasn't even possible, or that, and this is where the theme for my shows comes from, is transforming fear to move us into freedom. And I am talking about global freedom, but I'm also talking about individual freedom, because fear is the thing that I believe is the root of all hate, all disharmony, all paralysis, because we know fear, when you have fear, you fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so if you have been in an environment, and there's a lot of science on this now, Dr. Bruce Lipton has done a lot of science on what happens with fear, and especially fear in young children, fear in utero. So if you are in a fearful environment, you're not in a frozen state. You don't create. You don't. And if you're in the flight, you're just running from, not running to. You're always trying to avoid danger, and the game is to survive. Just like the game on a political stage is to beat your opponent. If life has taught you as a young person to be fearful, then you can become very programmed to think the world is unsafe, and that the whole object of your game, whether you know it consciously or not, and this was true for me, very true, was to avoid fear, avoid fearful situations, avoid what we fear, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's why I was so inspired to, again, it was one of those things that someone called it out of me. They said, but Catherine, you would be really good at doing these online chat shows. And I said, oh, I don't think so. I can't really see where that would, I mean, there's lots of them out there, so why would I do it, right? But like with anything else, like an artist, no two artists are going to create the same kind of art.
Yeah.
No two talk show hosts are going to create the same kind of venue. And so that is really what I started slowly, and I thought, I'm going to bring out the people that I want to talk to, I want to hear from, and they're not the people who are the already in the public eye that everybody thinks, you know, the Wayne Dyers or the Bruce Liptons, let's say, or, you know, the people who are apparently very successful in their lives. But what I was feeling was there was a very large distance between those people who in the public eye had been kind of put on a pedestal, and there was that distance. I wanted to make a bridge between, so for people to realize that they're just the same as you and me. They get up in the morning, they're hungry, they're thirsty, they need to put their clothes on. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I wanted to create that kind of a venue. So that's basically how the whole concept of getting an online chat show going. And I started with the radio, Blog Talk Radio, and then gradually moved into video chats and so forth. So, but I don't want to get off track here, but basically what happened was when I started the online chat show was in 2012 in January. And as I say, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just thought, okay, but I was still, and this is important because we're talking today about following your bliss, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't following my bliss. I wasn't following my bliss. I was being told, you're good at it. Mm-hmm. You're good at it. So, and we would like you to do it. And that is what an important distinction that I want to share with you and with the audience is that there's so many people teaching us about following your bliss, find out what you love, get into it and do it, right? But if you can't do that because you were birthed in fear, you were traumatized as a child, or you have an idea of the world that is fearful, you're not going to feel your own bliss.
Yeah, and that's a very common thing that I see all the time when I'm working with entrepreneurs is, you know, they're looking and trying to figure out that, well, what do I want to do? Like, if even given the opportunity, you know, still, you know, they have no idea what to actually do and how to even go about looking for that point of passion or bliss. And because, like you said, they've been, you know, in that situation of doing what they're really good at, and they are really good at it. You know, and that's why they keep getting requests, and they're really busy, and they have lots of sales, and they're, you know, things are going great because they're really good at it. And so, yeah, it's very difficult. I know from talking to them that it's, you know, how do you take that, you know, well, this is what I've always done. I'm, you know, I'm good at it and I enjoy doing it, but I'm not passionate about it. You know, I don't love doing it. And that's, I think, where the big distinction really comes from in there.
And how do you find that place where you actually, you can feel, and this is something that it seems odd if you didn't, now I'm going to backtrack a little bit. In 2012, when I started my show, I started in January, and in March of that year, my son was killed in a car accident. So he was almost 30, he was 29. And so I'd only had a few months of starting to do the show, and it opened me up to all kinds of areas that I wouldn't have already had prior to that event happening. that prepared me for that event, okay? And helped me to move through having my son transition with much more ease than I could have possibly had I not had that experience. So this is where following what's calling you, you don't know what's coming next. You don't know what you're being prepared for when you're just following. So I'm a big advocate of following what calls you, what, you know, but at the same time, I'm wanting to say that you can spend your whole life being what I call a people pleaser, which also is kind of follows the calling, but it's kind of a different voice. It's that, you know, when you feel like you have to do certain things, like you say, because you're good at it and people want you to do it, and you're the one who gets, you know, that role because you're good at it, but it isn't necessarily your bliss, but you get great joy from the gratitude people give you for doing it, or you get great joy from making their lives better. But you're not actually feeding your own passion, bliss, you know, and what you really came here to do, which I feel like we all came here to do certain things, mostly to explore, mostly just to explore and to see what's possible in the physical reality, what can we do. But also I think we have opportunities to make it a better place than it was before we got here. So right. we have that opportunity. So, but for me, I was 9 years old when my dad died. Now, he was 37 years old, had a massive heart attack, left my mother a widow with 5 kids. And we were he was in the RCMP, and we were stationed in Manitoba, and she had no family. So she went into fear, shock, trauma. And so the environment, I went from an environment that was stable. You know, my dad was, we lived in the detachment. In those days, the RCMP and the family lived in the detachment, which was the house attached to the office. Yeah. So my world was pretty safe, secure. He was young, you know, 37 years old, very healthy. He'd had a physical just before that. So he was totally healthy. Walked out one night, had a massive heart attack, and was dead. So it's not a shift of gradual, someone's dying, leaving, changing jobs. This is instant. And now I'm 9 years old, so I'm able to read. So now I see my name with my siblings in the paper as orphans. First time I heard it in that context. Now we're orphans. My mother's a widow. And I'm starting to pick up on we have no money, we have no resources, where, you know, she's just terrified and paralyzed. Mm-hmm. And now we call that post-traumatic stress. Yeah. In those days, they didn't call it anything, and there really wasn't any help. You know, there really wasn't any tools, and especially for kids. Even today, a lot of times people will say, well, kids are resilient. Yes, but they need tools. They need to have an understanding. What we as human beings, we give things meaning. And if we give it the wrong meaning, or a meaning that is less than neutral, then we can internalize that and label it and wear it, right? Uh-huh. My father died, but that did not mean I was bad or wrong or had done anything or could have prevented it. But at 9, you don't know that. Yeah. You don't know. You know what I'm saying? So you don't know that you didn't do something. You just know that your world has changed dramatically. And in my case, because my mom really just did not have the resources or tools to deal with it, it just became more and more traumatic. Let's just put it that way. And, you know, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but let me just say that from there, the trauma that happened in my life just kept escalating, one thing after another. And so even if my early years were fairly stable and happy and joyful, if I had a dream, it got locked right there. Yep. I always consider that moment the moment in time where my life froze. And from then on, I saw life as something to survive.
Yeah.
To try to,
yeah, it definitely, yeah, it gets, that whole world turns upside down, and you're now, ta-da, here's the world of fear. And this is what it looks like, on a grand scale.
And also, as if, this is why I say how important it is to have that neutrality about things. It's an event. Children are born and children die. Parents are born and we die. Nobody gets off the planet alive, as far as I know, not yet. We all have to go through that, right? That's how we come in and that's how we leave. But we've turned it into it has meaning. It's like, depending on when it happens in a person's life, defines how the people around will accept it or not accept it, right? And how it had meaning for me, a lot of meaning. It meant I was now in a different world than I was in before that, in a stable world where maybe dreams could have been possible. But I don't know that. I mean, because I just don't remember having any dream for myself prior to that. Like, I just, at 9, maybe I did, but I don't recall. But after that, my life became finding ways to earn my keep, earn people's love, appreciation, not be rejected, not be, I had to find ways to make my existence, to justify my existence on the planet. Now, you can't follow your bliss from that attitude.
Yeah, you're definitely going in an uphill direction for sure.
Yeah, because you are your whole survival, if you believe that, which I did, depends on making other people happy. So what they want, either from you or for you, is what you do. So this is where at this point is when people are watching this, or when they're thinking about their own lives, this sometimes can be a reason why, when they hear, just follow your bliss, they can't do it. So no matter how many marketers or how many people tell them, here's a formula, here's a way to do it, it's not going to work for them, because they can't, because this is the important thing. Trauma at an early age especially takes away that safe world, that place where you can find out who you really are. Because when you're in fear, you're going to freeze, flee, or, those things go into play, and nothing else can happen.
Yeah, and it does, and again, it's, you can't paint a broad spectrum to that, or a broad, you can't just say, oh, okay, everybody that's gone through a trauma like that is going to freeze, because other people have the exact opposite reaction, where they go, all right, these people died, or this event happened, and they just excel. They go, okay, I just have to do things better, and I will do better, and for some reason there's that quirk, and I can't remember. I was actually just reading some stuff on how people deal with stress, and specifically traumatic stress, and it's, some people have the ability to, when they release all those stress hormones, they shift that into a positive, and they immediately just start going in a positive direction. And where other people would come down with the PTSDs from that exact same situation, the other person just excels, because they take that and turn it into a positive.
I think what you're talking about, though, is adults. When you're an adult and you have a traumatic event, your ability to move through it and see that you didn't do anything wrong, or that you didn't cause it, or even if you did, you're going to rise above it, and those hormones kick in. But that's part of the problem, Richard, is that we have been living in a world filled with that, and those hormones that create that stress are what's creating a lot of our illness. If you look at a lot of the research about how we're running on stress and adrenaline, and when you keep your body in that mode all the time, you get sick. That's basically, I know now that is the reason I ended up with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue at that time, because I didn't, if you looked at my life, It was a constant overcoming. It was like nothing could throw me over. And when I was 9 years old, it wasn't like my father died at all. I went back to school and someone said to me, "I'm sorry to hear your father died." And I shrugged my shoulders and said, "It happens." And that's how I was all of my life, because I had learned to not feel, period.
Mm-hmm.
Not the pleasure and not the pain. I learned how to intuit, because I was intuitive even at that early age. I could pick up on everybody else's emotions and feelings and sense things, but I wasn't trying to avoid pleasure. I was just always trying to find ways to overcome the stress and the fear, and I was very, very good at it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying.
Yeah. Getting yourself to a place of not feeling pain, but it also means, well, you have to eliminate all those other emotions that are positive as well, right? Because if you're going to feel the good, well, there's the bad sitting right beside it.
Yeah, and so it always looked like I was on an even keel, and it was, but it was because I just couldn't, because I had trauma to deal with. That was how my life unfolded. I just happened to have one thing, you know. When my brother drowned when he was 23, my mother remarried a man with bipolar, and we didn't know that. He didn't have any children, so living in a household, it was hell. It was hell. There's just no two ways about it, and there were no resources. But that's not really the point of my. I know there are other people who have trauma. You can have trauma at any age, but what I'm talking about is the trauma that does shut you down as a child. And because we don't, and we didn't, and even now we're getting better at it, but we really don't see that as something we need to look at. But if you look at the rising rates of obesity in children, we are living in a world that has been driven by fear. Our politics are driven by fear. For the most part, we're trying to, that's why we go to war. It's fear-based in the collective. So what I'm saying is that in order for us to thrive on the planet, which is possible, we need to transform that fear, because it's the thing that is preventing us from seeing the solutions, the positives, the opportunities. You don't see those if you're constantly in a receptive mode to avoid fear, fear of things that you fear, because whether it's the house is going to burn down, or you're going to have a car accident, or you're going to whatever, if you are trained for that, then that's what your receptors are going to pick up, more so than anything else. So you can't follow your bliss when you're not able to feel. Your intuitive guidance system is a feeling-based system, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that a lot of people get frustrated when they hear the law of attraction and they hear the, just follow your bliss, do what makes you happy. It's very difficult if you can't feel. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in a, it doesn't mean you don't love somebody or you don't have that, but I'm talking about really feeling what you feel, not just picking up on your environment, what other people are feeling, right? Mm-hmm. To be able to assess, like, you knew you wanted to create and you like doing your art, but as soon as someone told you that was the venue to take it in, you weren't, all of a sudden your bliss wasn't in that. So
yeah, it was the sort of the methodology, right? Okay, well, I can continue painting and being creative if I'm using it as a means to have my income. Like if I could probably just go paint just for the fun of it, then I probably would do more of that, right? Rather than going and having to be a production artist. And it comes down to the methodology of, well, okay, I have to produce. And so there's a demand placed on my creativity, mm-hmm. right? Exactly. yeah, that makes it no fun.
And yet, you know, and that's the whole thing though, but you had to know that. And that's why you're saying you're meeting people today that have, you know, these dreams, or they want to do things, but they're doing the thing that because it makes the money, because it's what they're good at, but to be able to really see, oh, this makes me feel so good. And when I feel so good, I mean, I've had that happen to me many times, because part of our programming is, if it feels really good, or it's like you're an artist, you know, you hear people say all the time, get a real job. You can do your art on the side. You can do that as a hobby. You love to sing. You can do that on weekends. But for, you know, we tend to have been a society that if you show a certain talent, then people, parents, teachers, whatever, kind of remember a box for that. You know, it's like, you're going to be a that. And then people start pursuing a that, as opposed to allowing your inner guidance to take you to an expression that's joyful, where you actually can support yourself in doing it. It doesn't have to, we've been trained to, you have to pick, one's the job, which you're not going to like, but you're going to do, or the thing you love to do, right?
Yeah, because if it was up to my mother, I think I'd be an electrician or a carpenter or something like that.
Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, when we start to really look at these things, and a lot of people are now, to follow it, like I see it twofold. Sometimes we are being called because it is our bliss, and the divine, or whatever you want to call it, is giving us a taste, a sign, a something. If you're doing it to please other people, then you're probably not going to feel that bliss, but it could still be the thing that you really love to do. And I mean, that is basically what I wanted, to find ways we could transform the fear that's running so many of our lives. I'm not saying everybody is living in fear, but there's a fear theme, if you will, on the planet. And what I learned in politics especially was that part of the marketing for policies or for ideas sometimes is based on fear, and that we often hate what we fear. And so, you know, you think about, if some, you know, people that will tell you they hate spiders. Now, they really hate them.
Yeah.
But really, if you really ask them, do they know a spider? Have they ever, you know, really
friends with a spider?
Yeah, or have they ever watched how a spider, you know, actually creates that web or anything like that? They don't even want to know it. They hate them, and it's not that; it's they fear them, and they fear them because of many. I mean, there could be many reasons why people fear something, right? But for the most part, it is that fear of the unknown that translates to hate. Yep. And we do it not just with spiders and snakes, but we do it with people. We do it with people across the, you know, the globe. We don't know them. It's been easier to do, you know, back in World War II, you could villainize people. We didn't actually travel as much, and we didn't have the internet, so we didn't have conversations with people from different cultures. And that's what I wanted to do, because I was looking at, I know there's people in every country on this planet who have the same desire to raise their children in peace, to, you know, have good food on the table, to just thrive. And I wanted to be able to bring them to more people, so that they could see people having a conversation. Hey, that person's from this other country. They don't look like the villain that we thought they did. Yeah. And by getting to know them and or their philosophies, their practices, you know, we could transform some of the fear. And that basically is why I ended up doing the shows, even though initially it wasn't my bliss, because I was terrified. I just did not want to be in the public eye that much, but it kept happening. And so I didn't fear it enough that I hated it, but I definitely, because I did do it. But now I have to say it is my bliss, because I love finding out how people do things differently and what's possible.
Right.
That's a long way of getting to that, back to that,
yeah.
but
well, and something that I often say when I'm working with our clients, trying to figure out what it is they want to do, or to figure out their passion, or even figure out the right dream to really pursue, and we go through a process of creating a map, sort of step by step. And if they can see that journey and they're looking at all the different things they're doing, and it looks really scary and it feels scary to them, and they're actually afraid to take that first step, then chances are it's the right step, right? Because you have to have a certain amount of fear. So in that sort of case, it's sort of like, well, fear is actually a good thing. Just in the sense that it's showing you, what you're uncomfortable with. And
I also don't think of that. I actually think we mistake fear and excitement. They actually feel very much the same, like, right?
Yeah.
So
I was actually reading a study on that, where they're actually saying the emotional and the physical responses to fear and excitement are actually identical. It's just the mindset. So if you're riding on an airplane and you're terrified, and you're sitting there, you're watching the ground whirl by, and you're going, oh, we're going to die. Well, obviously, you're in that fear mode. But if you could just shift your mindset to going, wow, look how fast we're going. I wonder how fast we're going. That's really exciting. Look at all that stuff whirl by. Ooh, look at that. You're having the same, like, whoa, look at that go, as the fear. And if you even look at the expression on someone's face, when they're on a roller coaster, it's really hard to tell the difference. Right? They're excited and they're afraid, and it's it's this whole mishmash. It's like, it's such a fine line to cross over, that once you've tuned into it, you can actually mentally shift that gear. And that's something I do pretty regularly. I actually love change. I'm kind of a bit of a freaky person. I love it when things are changing. Oh, I have to move. Woohoo! Let's start packing. Let's do that.
but that's
I don't want to quit my job. I don't want to do this or that.
But that's the truth. We're always changing. It's just a matter of whether the enjoyment is that we notice, and that we consciously choose to, or that we, and how life is going to happen. And it's a matter of not just overcoming our fears, but noticing that like, I didn't know that I wasn't feeling, because I was so intuitive that I was definitely picking up. I'm able to read people, walk into a room and know right away if there is a conflict or if there's a calm. But I wasn't able to enjoy the good stuff. It seemed like there was only two ways in the world. There was absolute sheer terror and horror and trauma to overcome. And once that was overcome, then I would have the release. And I used to even tell myself how much better I worked under stress.
Yeah.
But a lot of people say that and believe it. And it's fine until you get sick. Because when you let your adrenals going all the time, you're going to burn them out, and you are going to end up one way or another. I mean, I'm not putting this on anybody that you absolutely are going to get sick. But that if you look at people's lifestyles who are unhealthy, or have a situation like I did with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, a lot of times people say, well, that's depression, or it's they don't really know what it is, but they will give you antidepressants for it and painkillers, which is kind of funny. They don't know what it is, but those are the two things they will give you.
Yeah, you must be depressed, or we'll pump you full of drugs. Actually, my mother-in-law suffers from fibromyalgia. At least we think, because they never really know. The same kind of thing. Well, we're going to give you this, and we're going to give you this, and well, we'll see if that does anything. And it's really
and for me, because I am so curious, and because it was a point in my life that I was ready to look at how the trauma and drama of my early years really had impacted me. That when, that was the fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue didn't hit me gradually. I went to bed one night The next morning I woke up, I thought I didn't wake up, that's the point. I had like the flu or something, and I felt like I got run over by a truck. Now I spent the next 2 years sleeping 22 hours a day, every day.
Yeah.
The 2 hours I was awake were, I'd have a bath, have a bowl of cereal, like I could not, and I couldn't think, and I couldn't whatever. But for me, it became, and I'm not saying this is for everyone, but for me, it became the journey that opened doors for a new life, for a life that I hadn't even known was possible. And that is, that's when I went into more of a metaphysical, spiritual journey into the depths of my soul to recognize that how all of these different things that I didn't think affected me at all. I didn't think anything of my father dying at that age didn't have that impact. Because I had it together. I was able to cope. I was the peacemaker in the family. I was able to intervene with my stepfather when he was violent. I was the one even though I was way the smallest in the family, I was the one that could tap into something in him to prevent him from going further than he might have gone. So to me, I had it handled. There was there wasn't anything wrong. That's just how life was. Life was in my family, a continual spiral of drama and trauma. But I didn't have any time to stop and say, what do I want to do with my life?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I here? Because all I saw was I was the fireman for the family, basically. That was my job, and not to spend too much time trying to figure out something else or some joyful. I mean, anytime I brought up anything like that, even for a few minutes, people would be like, "What do you want to do that for?"
Mm-hmm.
Or can you make money at it? Or right? Because and that's why I'm saying how for a lot of people who have heard before, follow your bliss, or know who you really are. Sometimes it does take some introspection. Sometimes it does mean more than just sitting down and saying, well, I'm in this family, this is my name, this is what our family, history is. Sometimes you got to go deeper. And that's basically, that is what I had to do, was to go into that spiritual understandings and start to understand how we are more than our physical body, but the physical body is where we see manifest that pain of those emotions, of the shutdown, of that not valuing ourselves, not seeing our role as important, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you, for me, it's meditation. That's what I went into from that and came out on the other side with a whole new awareness of what this life is all about. And that's why I talk about making friends with life and making friends with death, because they're two ends of this, not two even ends, but two parts of a cycle that it never ends. Uh-huh. And that was, this is what I'm saying, is you're building on everything. Each part of your life, you're building something to put in your toolbox to use later that I didn't know I was going to use later. What happened to me when I was 9. But when my son died, in 2012, that is when I woke up. So I always say it's like bookends. My father's death is what froze me into a cycle that didn't allow me to actually know I had a bliss, that I had any passion for anything. It was just reactionary living, which is all about survival. And then when my son died, it took the fear away. It took that's when I realized there isn't really any death at all. It's just dropping the body. And it showed me you're not going to survive this. So stop trying to survive it. And instead, thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. Start
Sorry?
Start actually living that,
yes,
rather than just surviving.
Yes, and stop trying to avoid the things that you think might cause you to die, or might cause you to be uncomfortable, or might cause you whatever. But people, I think a lot of us that have had those kinds of experiences, those kinds of traumas, we can't, it's difficult for us to hear someone who has had a fairly stable childhood. And that's where I really think this is where it gets stuck for a lot of us. And an environment, a culture of fear that we're living in on the planet. But if you don't have that at home safety feeling, like home is where you should feel safe, where a lot of people don't. I did not grow up feeling safe in my home. I felt more safe out walking down the street than I did in my own home.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so how when we hear people talking about, and we're hearing it constantly because the marketing is like crazy right now for entrepreneurs, and follow your bliss, and do what makes you happy, and so forth. And I just want people to really realize that there's tools available, but you have to recognize, are you actually capable of feeling? And if you're not, I mean, feeling, really hearing your intuition, knowing, right?
Yep.
And and if you've had trauma, you might not be. You might be just reacting to life. But so they know that they don't have to stay stuck there. They can be like you are doing, working with people, following these big dreams.
Yep.
It's possible. You don't have to just merely survive it.
Right. So what do you have, or what do you do sort of in your, realm of tools, I guess, that you use to really sort of help people to move from that point of, either not knowing what their bliss is, or not even be able to sort of come to the place of, what do you mean I'm not in my bliss? Right. Really trying to move from here to there. What do you sort of do when you're talking to someone in that state?
My first thing is meditation. To be able to help people to, I have a meditation CD that's available on the website, and it is on giving and receiving love, because that's the one place where if you do not feel loved, you don't feel valued, you don't feel that you're worthy of following your bliss or making your dreams come true, that's one of the things. I also have a short meditation on self-esteem, which is free when you sign up for the website. If you go to lgrcc.com, you can sign up for the free, it's on self-esteem meditation. It's about half an hour. The other one's an hour long. And those are two ways. And I'm going to be in the future working on doing some teleseminars with some different programs. But I have a lot of guests on my shows that people can go and listen to, the shows that are free in the archives that have all kinds of tools. So I don't like to try to duplicate what other people are doing, but I do like to bring it, and that's why I do the shows, is to bring these people out and say, what tools are you using? Because everyone has a different tool that's going to work for them. And I've worked with different modalities and, to help myself move into a place of more empowerment. But they're not all the same tools that other people use. And we don't all have the same journey, right? So it's going to take, but as far as working with people privately, I do the clarity coaching is really where I listen to them, and I don't know what it is or where it comes from. It's the same, it's the knowing that I've always had since I was a little girl, but that I shut down over the years because I didn't want to know I just needed to react and survive. That's all that was necessary. I didn't want to know more. And so I kind of shut that down, but it's always been with me. And now what happens is when people talk to me, I can pick up on the subtle, I don't know what the other energies that may be influencing them, and not to tell them what to do, but maybe to suggest different things or to ask them the questions that they know the answers to. That's how I feel about the whole thing.
Right. So it's more of a guidance process kind of thing. You're not going to say, oh, well, hi, Bob, you need to be doing this, this, and this. And if you got off your butt and you did this now, then life would be happy. Yay.
No, I don't have, and I don't think from my experience, nobody actually has the answers for anyone else. Mm-hmm. That's what I feel about knowing, who am I? We have to go there. And, you know, I will say, Richard, it isn't easy, and sometimes it's painful, and sometimes it takes time to heal and to let yourself forgive yourself for being who you think you are, or who you think you should be, or who you want to be. Like, we get so many mixed messages, but if we can get past our fear of each other, our fear of making a mistake. You know, I always say, I don't make mistakes. Now, people will think that's arrogant, but I mean that, because they're just choices. How do you know it's a mistake until you do it?
Yeah.
It's just a choice. If I go down that path and I end up, you know, the road is blocked, that's okay. Somebody will say, well, that's a mistake. Or they'll say, I told you not to go down that path, so it's definitely a mistake. No, I could have had any number of things happen on that path, that even if I do get to a blocked path, that those other things, the view, the people I met, were all important to my journey.
Yeah.
So I don't see them, I don't see life that way. And so that, yeah, that is how I kind of coach people or work with people. And my other, I mean, I don't do a lot of that because I feel like I bring a lot of people through my shows out that do work, you know, with the personal, because to be honest, I can hardly stand to hear people's, especially when people get into the I'm a victim mode.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that, because, and that's not, it's not about a judgment. It's just, I have a hard time because I know none of us really are victims.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know some people have a hard, oh yeah, but if somebody does something to you, you are a victim. Up to a point, I understand that. Life happens, it just happens, but we have more power than we often think we have. And that's why I say we're not victims. I'm not saying you can't have something happen to you. Somebody, you know, somebody hits you, you're definitely feeling like a victim, right?
Yeah, you didn't choose the nature of that experience. You are getting an experience whether you wanted one or not. But yeah, it's not because you're a victim, it's because you need to have an experience.
Well, it's not, yeah, it's not that the experience happens, but it doesn't label you. It's like, it'd be like the same way as calling somebody always a success. Well, they're going to have successes and they're going to have ones that aren't so successful, right? But so that's why I don't like that kind of thinking, is because people tend to, if something happened to them, they wear it. And I'm not a fan of labels, because I think we can kind of live out the labels that we wear. And yeah, so I like to try to help people to see their power, to see another side of things. Usually that's all it takes, a little clarity, and that's why I call it clarity whisper, because sometimes I hear somebody say something and it's just like, okay, wow, so what about this? Have you ever looked at it this way?
Yeah.
And
I know that was a big focus for myself for some time. It was always that I was seeking clarity. Right, there was so many opportunities, so many different paths I could choose, that yeah, I just wanted a little bit of clarity so I could know this way or that way. But it was that piece that always held me still. Right, I couldn't make a step forward until I actually had enough clarity that I could move forward. And I always sort of connected it to, like, you know, if you're running around with a blindfold on, right, how fast do you move when you have a blindfold?
Exactly.
Not very fast at all. But you take it off. Oh, look, I have some clarity. Even if it's in a gloomy room, okay, I have more clarity than I did, you know, 5 minutes ago. At least I can sort of stumble my way around a little bit. I can see some things. And the more light you expose on the situation, right, the more you can actually pick up speed and start moving with confidence. And fear goes away, and all those other kind of things dissipate. It's like, okay, I can actually see, I can start running now, you know, and you really pick up the excitement and the momentum, and you just carry forward. But again, if you throw the blindfold back on because of another experience or event, then you're back standing still again, don't know which way to go.
Yeah, and I think too, like especially adults, you know, when you get to a certain point and you realize, okay, you've done everything that you were supposed to do, and yet you still, like you say, you don't feel like you're not in a place of bliss, and you know it's possible. But and so that's when you start, like, I don't like the word should at all. I find it just makes no sense to me, because we all have certain ways of doing things that are unique, that are only we can bring out our gifts. And it's so my hope with doing my shows, with doing, I just did the International Kinesiology Conference in Banff. They had, it was their 40th anniversary, and they media partnered with me. So I was on the ground and able to interview the individual practitioners, the speakers, and so forth. That's a way of helping people to transform the fear of alternative or complementary medicine health options that are available. And so, and that sometimes we that's what I'm saying about fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. Painkillers and antidepressants are not necessarily, they definitely were not my choice. But had I, at the time when it first happened, I didn't know that there were any other choices. Once you get that there's other choices, you can get past your fears. And especially when I introduce people to a person, a practitioner, a real person, this is their business, but this is who they are, that can help to make a bridge for them to walk across past their fears and move into a better life. So everything I do is about getting past the fear, because I feel like that's why I had the path I did, was because I had it in so many layers. And when you start to see that, you start to recognize, okay, why can't I follow my bliss? Why don't I know who I am? When you are in that much fear and you go through that much trauma, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's death of a parent or divorce or whatever it might be, violence in the household, as a child, you put up not just like blinders, you have walls. You have walls and walls and walls, because you do come to believe the world is not a safe place. And so, once you realize that that's what you've done, you start tearing down the walls. It can be a little frightening, but it can also be incredibly liberating. And that's why I do what I do, to help people to move to the point where they can talk to someone like you and you can say, following your bliss, following your dreams, and helping them make it a reality. Whereas when you're trapped in fear, you don't even think that's a possibility, Richard. You don't even think. I have seen, years ago, I saw people talking about dreams, or, if I'd have seen your website, Dream Big, I'd be like, that's for someone else.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody needs to know, we all can thrive. This is not about just special people. We're all unique, and we all have their capacity to go forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some people, I guess, they go, well, maybe next time around or something I'll thrive. But I guess, this time around I'm in a life of suffering, and that's it, kind of thing. And it's like, well, no, you have the chance to do it now. It's, but yeah, it's difficult to say, well, you have a choice.
Well, that's the part. Yeah, where we were talking about victimhood is more, the word is that whole thing about suffering it's been glorified so much. It's glorified in war, it's glorified in religion, it's glorified. It's like, you suffer enough here, you're going to have, bread and honey in heaven. Well, that, to me, that is, and I respect other people's beliefs in religious ideologies, for sure. Everyone has a right to that. But if it's not working for you, it's maybe time to look at expanding, because I don't think that, yes, physical pain, you put your hand on a hot stove, it is going to hurt. Mm-hmm. But suffering, I feel suffering is optional. That's the part where, so that's how I feel about death. Yes, when you lose a loved one, when you lose your child, or I don't really see it that way, but when they do transition, it's painful. It hurts you. Yes. But suffering and wearing it like a mantle, calling yourself a widow, an orphan, a whatever, victim, it doesn't actually help you to thrive. Yeah. That, to me, those labels really weigh you down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everybody does have a choice.
Yeah, actually, it was sort of dealing with my son. He was 4 at the time. He's 5 now. So, and it was one of the first times I sort of really started delving into the, you really have choices about how you want to feel. And he was mad. He was just flaming mad about something, just having a big fit. And so I asked him, well, how do you want to feel? Do you want to feel mad? Are you happy feeling like this? Or would you rather feel excited and be having fun and be happy? What do you feel like feeling right now? And he said, well, and he stopped in the middle of his tantrum. He said, well, I want to feel happy. I want to feel good. And I said, okay, good, let's do that. And so right there on the spot, he just shifted to happy, and off we went and did happy things, right? I think we went and played a game or something like that. And the whole tantrum, being upset, mad, just smashing and bashing his, things around, gone, right? Made a choice. Oh, well, I'd rather be happy. Okay, good. Let's do that now.
Well,
right?
And to realize that you actually, you're not enjoying this feeling in your body when it's all out of control like that. And oh, you mean I don't have to experience it this way? I can, that's how I see it too, is that life is going to happen. We can't stop the change. We can't stop the tide. It's going in, it's coming out, it's going to happen. But it's giving people the tools. And I especially talk about children because I've seen how damaging it can be when it's not addressed, when children aren't heard, when, had I had someone I could talk to as a child to understand better what was going on, I might have had a whole different life. And granted, I don't regret any of it because I learned so much. But I just think the reason I learned so much is so I can share it, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every generation. We could start empowering our children and recognizing how, I really recommend Dr. Bruce Lipton's, I think his book is called Spontaneous Evolution. And he really talks about the whole concept of how it's fear and living in an environment where your survival's on the line, like the mom, when the mom is pregnant or the child is little and she's worried about not enough money, not enough food, not whatever, the brain actually develops in a very different way because you're in survival mode. And so, and I look at that, Richard, globally, and I'm thinking about all the generations of children who grew up in war, with lack, with not enough food, how do you think they're going to be as adults? I mean, that's something we need. If we really want to get to peace, and we want to stop the cycle, we're going to have to address the fact that these people didn't have, like people say, just get over it. Or just we look at the First Nations people in Canada that have lived in poverty for so long, and people don't want to look at, well, how did that happen? When you have a fear of a mother and father who are afraid they can't feed their kids, they can't whatever, that is going to translate to the child. Child grows up, has another child, right? It perpetuates. So now we are at that point, I think, in evolution where we understand that if we can transmute this fear, we can all thrive.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So, and I guess what I want to ask you, we're kind of getting down to the end of the show there, we should, I want to touch on, well, what's next? What do you see as sort of that next step of, okay, well, how do I help people? How do I, make that more possible? And how do I continue that message to grow?
Yeah. Well, at this point, I'm in my 8th season on Let's Get Real Chatting with Catherine. So I have interviewed people from all over the world on all kinds of different modalities, whether it was politics or metaphysical issues or social issues. And now I really, as I've come to understand this more clearly about transforming fear and the importance of it, I will probably continue with the shows, but I want to do more of, like I did with the kinesiology conference, covering conferences that are committed to not just, lip service, but actually helping children with trauma, helping children to deal with and addictions in families and that kind of thing. So I want to start to bring out more awareness of this because there's now more science that's also supporting it. It's not just woo-woo, so to speak. It's not just from a medicine. My intention is to continue to spread those messages and let people know what's available to help heal and move forward. Because I think we can all be, we can all thrive, we can all be healthy, and that's my intention. So, and then of course I'm open to whatever wants to happen, because that's kind of how I've learned to live. That's not reactionary. That is being willing to follow my bliss, willing to allow my dreams to percolate, and then see what gets called, you know, what is called for. So I don't say just stop listening to what's calling you, just make sure that you're in tune with your own intuition, your own feelings about it, so that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a funny distinction too, because I sort of always looked at, yeah, you know, how do you do that move from, you know, listening to just, you know, listening or tuning out kind of things. And I've always sort of put it down to being open, right? It's a level of openness. And I find that when I'm in a reactionary mode, I'm feeling very closed emotionally, and I'm not really open to hearing other possibilities outside of my little box that I've currently stuck myself in. And I'll react to things based on the stuff in my little box, but I won't be open to new things or changing the box or all those kind of things, or making it a circle. Oh, let's go box, circle. Ooh, that's neat. You know, but yeah, it's that openness.
And being like your son, like you apply that to your son. How do you want to feel? You know, in the box of limiting possibilities, how do you feel inside of there? And then if you make it into a heart shape, how do you feel in there? It's as simple as that, really. Just what you said to your son, except he's a 5 and he's more open to, wait a minute, yeah, how do I want to feel? Whereas we as adults tend to go like, oh, the box has always been here, it's always been that shape, and that's where I fit in. And so we can learn so much from our children, you know?
Yeah, he definitely is, he's teaching me a lot. Often not enjoying the process.
No, but you know what? But that's the whole thing. I mean, I think that's why we have children, is to teach us, and how much we are willing to learn from them it really does expand our horizons and our ability to thrive. But you know very well, you look at children today and how, you know, they have many, you know, a 5-year-old is starting to show you all kinds of talents and things. And very often in generations past, we looked at a child who was good at something, and then you put him in the box, and next thing you know, he used to love painting or being an artist or doing whatever it is. And then as soon as you start telling them, oh yeah, well, now we're going to send you, you know, 20 years from now, you're going to university for blah, blah, blah. It's no longer fun. Yeah. So instead of, that's kind of what I'm talking about, is we don't need those boxes anymore. Why can't he be all of the things that he's showing you? And why can't you expand beyond your, you know, box that you thought was possible? And that's what we're doing here, Richard. That's really what we're doing, is dreaming big solutions. I mean, yeah. Yeah,
and it's, and to get the idea that there really is no box, right?
Yes.
And that we created the whole notion of a box, and for some reason decided we should be in it. And but yeah, it's a difficult concept, because this is the way it's been done, right?
Yeah,
and
but
we've been doing this for generations.
And that's where, again, I talk about the fear. People are afraid of going outside of that box because people reject them. People will say, you know, and you know, anybody can pull up history and talk about the people that went outside of the box. Yeah. Lots of things happened that sometimes they were really great, sometimes they weren't. So, you know, we are aware of that, right? We're like, oh, if I go too far outside of, you know, the box, I'm gonna be rejected by the neighbors. They don't want me living on their street anymore, you know.
They'll turn you at the stake or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, well, but, you know, this is where we are at a point, I feel very strongly, and we're at a point of evolution that if we don't get out of those boxes, we aren't going to thrive on this planet. We got to move beyond it. It's here, it's now, and what might have been a cement boxes are not that. They're very, very frail now. We can just, you know, they blow over, we can walk right through, because other people have done, pioneers before us, have done so much work in breaking down those walls. I mean, you and I wouldn't be doing this kind of a show 20 years ago, what we're doing today. No, and exploring thought that's beyond what has been thought before. That just didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, and especially not on a show that really was focused on business and dealing with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Really, because that's what that's what I do.
People that are looking to become entrepreneurs today are people who are wanting to get beyond that box. Mm-hmm. And part of that has to do with, you got to know who you are. You've got to know for one thing, you've got to know if you're capable of being your own boss. You've got to know whether you have that skill set. But it's not just that. You can pick up a skill set, but you've got to have the passion for it. You've got to be able to see who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. And that's why I wanted to do this show with you, is because it's not just about dreams, but how do you get to that? Not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. True, some people's bliss, following their bliss, is taking out the trash. It's the guy on the end of the garbage truck. You see him going through the city, and he's loving it. He loves getting up early. He loves meeting different people. He loves doing it, and he knows it's appreciated. That's somebody following their bliss. They are not on a stage. They're not making something and selling it as an entrepreneur, but they're still following their bliss because they know who they are. You know what I'm saying? That is where the tools are available now to help people to get past it. And this is, people say, oh yeah, spending all your time navel gazing. Well, that is not what really a lot of this work is. It's not about focusing on just, who I am. It's on all of it and the healing that's necessary to thrive. Because generations ago, we just didn't live this long. I feel very strongly at that point, if it would have been generations ago when I got fired, I probably just would have died. That's all. Done. And nobody, so what? But now, I mean, we are living so much longer. I mean, people are having new careers, several careers in a lifetime. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why your business is important.
Yeah, we work with a lot of people that are in that 55, 65 that are just, I'm going to make a new business now.
Well, and I just hear Colonel Sanders was like 66 when he started his Kentucky Fried Chicken. When he started it, yeah. So, and there's plenty of evidence of people just starting to really follow their bliss, but you got to get out and past your fear. And I do feel like when more of us are individually not in fear, then collectively we're not in fear. And when we don't fear people on the other side of the world or other cultures and whatever, we don't fear that, we're not going to want to go to war with them. We want to, look at our food courts in Canada and the United States. That's multicultural, we want to eat their food. We want to eat different people's food. We want to dress in different cultures, clothes. We want to experience it, listen to their music. That kind of knowing wasn't possible before we had all this technology. So anyway, I really do feel like that's how you strengthen yourself and create a solid foundation to have your dreams come true, to get into being, business or entrepreneurship. You got to know who you are, and you got to know that you're valuable. That's the other part of it that a lot of entrepreneurs have a hard time with is, and especially in the metaphysical or spiritual or complementary medicine, they have a hard time with the money side of it because they don't understand how valuable it is and how nobody works for free, and nor should they. And you as an artist would probably really get that as well.
Yeah, I used to teach workshops on, you don't have to starve.
Why do we glorify that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're starving.
Yeah. Oh, well, you're not a real artist unless you're starving. So you must be doing something.
But if you're starving, how are you going to buy the oils or the paint or the whatever you're using, the canvas, to actually create? And how, if you have, like, this is what I say is conscious people, we are the ones that have to have the money now to actually facilitate the things that we want, the harmony on the planet. People have to let go of the negative stereotypes of people that have money. You see it all the time. People talking negatively about, oh, that rich person, they have. Well, we want people to have money, real people, not just corporations. We want real, honest to God people who have conscience and a passion and to offer tools. And like, for me, it's getting to these kids who are traumatized, so they are their future. We don't want a whole world of fearful people. You look at a dog, a fear-biting dog, there's nothing worse. Nothing worse, because when they're afraid, they're going to bite to prevent, and that's how we are as human beings as well. If you fear something, chances are you're going to hate it. And we don't want that. We want more love.
Yep. No, that's excellent. So yeah, so we should probably wrap it up. Now, now you mentioned your website, and we'll post that on our website where people will be able to see this replay, which they're probably seeing right now, if they're watching it as a replay. And let's see, and it was lgrcc.com, correct?
Right. And people that are interested in who have a skill set or a book or a way of life, they want to be a guest on the show, there's information on there as well to promote whatever they're doing and get that out to more people. Because that's who's watching my show, are people who are interested in moving into more harmony, more peace on the planet, and so forth.
All those happy things. Yay, happy.
Yes. And possible. Happy and possible. They're not just, you know, Pandora or what do I want to say? Utopian. It's not utopian we're talking about. We're talking about real. You know? That's why it's called Let's Get Real.
Let's get fake and imaginary.
Yeah, well, we have enough of that.
Yes. You can go to the movies at any point in time.
Or watch TV. That's why they call it programs, you know, so they can program you. We don't do programs.
Actually, oddly enough, I remember I was reading the history of TV, just on a weird side note. The programming, when you're actually working in the world of TV, the programming is actually referred to as the commercials. What we call a program is sort of the filler. The program, all the commercials, and the filler is based on the commercials and the commercial time and all that sort of stuff that you need to, you know, have filler in around it. But the programming is the actual commercials.
Wow. Well, and you know, does that surprise you? Really?
Yeah. Shocking.
I really enjoyed this, Richard. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for having me. I'm sure, you know, I sort of contained myself from arguing with you a whole bunch of things, but that's good.
You wanted to argue with me?
Oh, always.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. No, that's all right. Well, I'll talk to you afterwards. But I think, you know, there's a ton of fantastic things that you're doing, and the direction and the starting with the fear base, because really that is your base. You're at the, you know, if you're dealing with your fears and not moving forward from that point, that really is, you know, the base primal emotion. And if you're stuck, you know, there at that sort of level, there's no way you can get up into these higher kind of points until you start dealing with that. Yeah. And so I think it's great that you're really focused on that, because, you know, and like I said, that's what I see day in, day out, is people have these fears and they're stuck, and, you know, and they have to sort of work them out, kind of thing, and you have to build your way up. You can't just go from, oh, I'm living in fear, to a life of meditation and calm. And you can't just tell it to go away. Yeah.
You can't just say, don't be afraid. Oh, don't be afraid of that. Sure, you know, it just doesn't work. You have to be able to have the tools. And there's lots of tools on my website that offer that, lots of shows about that, and lots of ways they can work with me to find tools if I don't have them. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. Because yeah, you know, like I said, you know, if you've been working especially with these fears, and, you know, operating your life that way for, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, yeah, it's not going to be oh, here's the gadget thing and it's all fixed and better tomorrow kind of thing. It's going to take work, right? Yeah. It's, you know, you have to unlearn all of those old beliefs to implement, you know, put in those new beliefs to actually shift that whole direction.
Yeah, and it does depend, you know, Richard, I will say, it does depend on how willing the person is and how many years they've got, how much work. It's not always so much work. It just depends. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the end result is the good thing. I mean.
Yes. And I think, realizing that it all has a purpose, right? Like, we're here to experience things, and I'm not living this life of fear for nothing. It's to learn something in that process, and realizing there's something positive at the end of it sometimes is enough incentive, I think, to push people sort of to actually want to move out of the fear, rather than just saying, well, no, I'm safe in my box. I'm going to stay there, and I don't want to feel uncomfortable or more afraid, and move out of the box and to other things.
And that's really what I want people to know. It's not that this tool works or that tool works. It's that there is a choice, and it is possible. You don't have to be paralyzed by your fears. You can move into living the life you really want.
Fabulous. Excellent. All right. What else did I want to sort of mention? So so go to the site. You can check out the meditation CDs and check out all your programming that you got in the archives there. I've sort of looked through them. There's a pile of them, all stacked, 8 years worth.
8 seasons.
Seasons. 8
seasons. 8 seasons. Started in 2012.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So not 8 years, 8 seasons. Right?
Yeah.
That's like a TV reference, seasons kind of thing.
Yes.
Get it?
Yeah. Usually 2 seasons a year. Yeah.
So do go to the website. We'll have that posted on the on our website. Where is it again? There it is, lgrcc.com. You can go there. You can check out the meditation videos as well. And which one was it that you have? You can get for free if you sign up to your.
It's on the top right-hand corner of the website. It's for signing up for the to be on our email list.
Perfect. So so you can sign up, get on the email list, and get a free meditation. And it's a downloadable meditation, right?
Yes. Yeah. Both of them are.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. So you can listen to it on your MP3 player, gadget, doodad, whatever. Excellent. All right. So on that note, we're going to head off. Thank you so much, Catherine, for being on the show. It's been
my pleasure.
Thank you. And let's see, what else do I need to tell you? Well, I'll be here in a couple more weeks from now. We, as usual, doing our show the 2nd and 4th. Is that right? 2nd and 4th? That sounds wrong. 2nd and 4th Thursday of every month. And so we'll be here doing our show. We have another lovely guest on. And you can come back to our website and find out who that will be. And what else I want to sort of mention? Oh, while you're at our site, you can check out our own archives of our past shows and different folks we've had on. And if you, of course, want to be on the show, let me know. I'm always happy to chat with folks and see what you can offer the world and spread your message out there. So always happy to connect up with new folks. And do have a look at the rest of the site and see what we do to help entrepreneurs get from here to there and figure out their dreams and their passions and live the life that they've always wanted to live. All right, and on that note, we'll be seeing you later. So again, our site is www.dreambigsolutions.com. So thank you very much for listening to Dream Big Solutions, and we'll be seeing you in a couple weeks. Adios.